Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Art of Parenting. I'm your host, Nicky Rishi, founder of MissPoppins. Today, we're setting aside the technical details and diving into the life experience of postpartum recovery, from emotional highs and lows to the vital roles partners and healthcare provide. I'm honored to be joined by Eden Laurin, co-founder of Nyssa Care, a breast cancer survivor, doula, and veteran prenatal yoga teacher. After her first birth left her with little more than mesh underpants and an ice pack, Eden teamed up with OB-GYNs, doulas, and educators to create Fourth Wear postpartum recovery underwear, the first dual layered briefs featuring a 360-degree pocket for precise ice heat therapy. Wonderful. Today, Nyssa Care builds personal care solutions for postpartum recovery, period pain, and the unmentionables of womanhood. Hi, Eden. So good to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Great to have this conversation.
Yeah. I can't wait to, listen, learn a little bit more, especially maybe let's start with you taking us back to the first 72 hours after your baby was born. Quite a story physically and emotionally. What really surprised you?
I would say probably the most surprising thing was just the lack of resources, the lack of understanding on what to expect postpartum. And now, several years later, I understand. I can see, because it is kind of the pain point for every new mother and every new parent. But I was shocked. I was shocked that no one told me what to expect, that there weren't products, there was not conversation, there was not anything that really prepared me for the fourth trimester. It was all about the birth and then the baby.
And it becomes about the baby through and through, right? It's not about the mom ever. Even in the medical system, it's 6 weeks after you see your OB or something like that.
Right.
And you're not really mentally prepared, physically prepared. Should be, gosh, almost like a check-in you would feel through a teleconference with your provider. But I'm sure so many moms feel this isolation in their fourth trimester, as we call it. What was the hardest secret you carried, maybe? And how did you finally find someone to share it with?
I think I was surprised that even that the doctors didn't tell me what to expect, but even within my circle of friends and family, that we weren't sharing what to expect after we had a baby. And so it almost feels like there were steps to that. So the first one was shock, and then like anger, because you were given, gauze and like hard plastic ice pack after I had a 27-hour delivery, and I was just like, what? I felt failed. But then I think it was confronting the fact that as women, we are not sharing these realities. We're not talking about it, that there seems to be this hushedness around the language and around the experiences. And I really, it took me some months, but to realize that it's not just around postpartum, but it's also around period and ailments and chronic issues. And so we are kind of conditioned to keep this to ourselves and to suffer through, if you will. And that was a big one for me. And it was the realization also pushed me to now start speaking, ask questions, be curious, just be curious. What was the experience of our moms and our aunts and those around us? And then sharing and feeling comfortable to put language to what we experienced so that we could start to feel like community.
And mental load, in addition to the physical load of having a baby, is such a big aspect, right? And so I think there's a community element that really does make this fourth trimester much easier, or it should. So any of the parents, co-parents, dads listening, are there 3, 4 simple, concrete ways to ease a new mom's load in those early weeks?
I think one very simple thing to ask or to start a conversation with is, how can I help? What do you need? And it not being prescriptive, but being open to being supportive. It is an identity shift for any new parents. When someone is carrying the baby, they've had 9 months plus of a body change and feeling the shift. For the other partner, it is like an instant, they have to adjust. And those are very different trajectories. They're different timelines for that identity shift. So both for the birther, being patient and understanding that it takes a little while for your partner to understand what's going on, but then also for your partner to recognize for the birther that like a million things are going on. And if you're breastfeeding or chest feeding, if you're, I mean, there's so many, so many things that our body is going through while simultaneously trying to understand how to parent, possibly trying to understand what to do with your business or your job. And if you have other kids in the household, there's just so many balls in the air. And what has been, I think, helpful for me and my partner when we've had children is kind of going at it almost like a team, like it's like a new project. Yeah. So what do you need? Touch base, check-ins constantly. How are you feeling? What do you need? Do you need water? Let me get you water. Do you need some nuts? Just very low impact things that actually do so much for us to help us get through and survive the day or the night or these feedings or these crazy times. And I like patience. So there'll be a lot of times that I would ask my partner, like, this is how I feel. What can I do so that I can either communicate what I'm feeling rather than like biting or like responding with all the angst that it takes to keep this child going. What can I do to kind of articulate these things in a softer way so that they know that I'm not coming after them? They just happen to be getting the brunt of it if it is a tense or difficult moment. I don't know about you, but for me, the nighttime was always the hardest.
I mean, me and my husband were together for like 10 years and we really figured that we had figured each other out. But gosh, it was as if we had, they say it, you're killing your prior identity as you become a mom or a dad, and then you take on a new identity. And for taking on anything new, it takes a while. And it was so true for us to understand how to couple together, how to partner together. What are the boundaries or signals that work best?
Totally.
And so, hey, you figured it out, that all the power to you. And this is where we want to help others.
This is a little bit to help through the labor process, but also I found this activity was so impactful for like the 1 to 2 years afterwards as well. This someone taught us this, but what we need from our partner when we're going through something painful, we don't often articulate that. So I had also been with my partner for years before we gave birth for the first time. And thank goodness someone had done this with us. And I don't know if you had experienced this, but we had done something that was like mildly uncomfortable. You have to take like an ice cube and you hold it to your wrist. And without using words, your partner is supposed to comfort you. And my partner did what they assumed I wanted or I needed for comfort, and they patted my back. And it just so happens that having my back patted is like, I find the most patronizing, awful thing to happen. But I wasn't allowed to say anything during this exercise. You had to hold it for like a minute. And so then as soon as the minute ended and whoever got in the exercise said, now you can respond. And I was like, I'll never pat my back again. I was like, I hate my back. I don't know where that touched my psyche, something in my past. And I said, I explained how I like to deal with pain, how I need to be supported. My partner was like, amazing. Okay, great. We did the exercise again. He did it. It was wonderful. It was amazing. We have now touched on that exercise or had to understand how to support each other with physical touch, I don't know, 100 times since. And it was something as little as that is unspoken. I didn't have the language for it. I didn't even know that I needed to tell him. But it could be a night feeding. It could be a child getting sick. It's some way that we need to support in a painful or difficult situation that we have harkened back to that exercise so many times. And I feel like when you're going into delivery or you're going into this like identity shift, is being able to do these small exercises to know how to navigate it for each other, how to support each other.
My God, I think I need to have a podcast on communication signals in of itself. I have so many questions, but that's going to completely pivot the conversation to a different direction. I think we need to focus on that because that's so important. What you just mentioned could be life-changing. It's that little bit of miscommunication, sleep deprived, that can just pile on and cost marriages, cost couples the
Totally.
love, right? And so,
Yeah.
what a great little tool to have in your toolkit. Thank you for sharing. And on the other side, that's parent, that's your partner, that's co-parenting, that's community. But also, I think the medical system um, is accountable and responsible. So when we leave the hospital, what are some questions that you think new parents should ask their OB or
Yeah.
midwives to ensure that they are also getting the ongoing support that they deserve?
I would say we in Nyssa we had created mocked one up at one point, but did not get to push it to market. But having a notebook near you at all times, after I would say for the year after you give birth, if not kind of forever as a woman, and jot down questions or patterns that might be happening to your body if you're having the same thought over and over again. I mean, this is to speak to physical ailments, but also to mental, and then take those to your medical provider or your midwife. I think is really, really important. I have shifted the way that I approach getting treatment or getting care. I now go in with my questions. I often apologize first and say, listen, I work in women's healthcare, so I am going to come with questions. Can we make sure that there's enough time for me to ask those? Because the medical curriculum does not allow that space inherently. And so we have to make it for ourselves. And I don't think anyone is going to step in to make those changes and allow the space for us to ask these questions, and those resources aren't going to get developed, probably not in our lifetimes. So really we need to push for those changes ourselves. I would say feeling empowered to ask those questions. I think really knowing what felt comfortable and natural with your body before having birth or before getting pregnant, and using that somewhat as a baseline is totally okay. And in being able to kind of push your provider to help you understand what has changed since. And for me, I think starting to build that pattern then helped me throughout the consecutive other births and just dealing with other ailments as a woman, and now going into perimenopause and menopause,
Yeah,
because
that's
it
a
kind of
whole
holds a
different
different
phase.
standard. Totally, but that same marginalization is there. So it's like it's a totally different phase for us. You're so right, but the lack of resources is the same, and the lack of innovation is the same, and the lack of, I would say, when I talk about the curriculum, I also mean just the language. So here's an example. Like with breastfeeding, I had challenges and I didn't have the language to say what was hurting and what felt uncomfortable. I knew something wasn't right. And I think in this conversation I want to touch on right and wrong, because I don't like that language. It feels like I'm doing something that I'm not supposed to, and I don't think that that's fair for a new mother. But it just didn't feel right. It felt like something was off. The surveys they give you to that 6 week visit that you
Hmm.
mentioned, it doesn't have a question about that. And that 20 to 30 minutes that you have with your provider where they're just like drilling questions at you, and this is US, I know in other countries it's definitely more supportive. There's
Yes.
no space, they're not asking you that. So I realized if I didn't come and try to put some language, I can't say it doesn't feel right, but what I could say is I have a discomfort there. I'm not sure that I am using the technique that will benefit the baby as much as I would like it to. Using some of that language and pushing myself to have that language prepared in advance, it will, to me, made my appointments more beneficial. I got more, they were more successful. I've actually used the same technique for getting my hair done. I used to sit in the stylist chair and say, do what you want. And then I was like, this person doesn't even know me. Why am
Oh
I
yeah.
trusting?
Self-advocacy, right? Be an advocate for
Yes.
yourself within the medical system. And you're so right. I think that goes beyond maternity, beyond pregnancy. It kind of
Oh,
goes
absolutely.
towards disease management, pain management, anything that you can think, menopause. There is an undercurrent I am noticing within the femtech space, and I'm very excited for that, where the funding from institutional VCs is more and more towards that awareness and building a new ecosystem that has women first, women's needs first, that have been long overlooked. So might not be you and I reaping the benefits or fruits quite quickly, but definitely I think our future generations, it might be in the right process, or it might be in the right pipeline at least.
I
Um,
agree. I love the trends that we're seeing. I think for anyone that's listening that invests in this space, keep in mind that as women, we lead as the purchasers for a household, that statistically that a hospital or practice or services that we employ when we give birth tend to be what we will use for our family's care, our growing family's care. And unfortunately, we will go through many other, like we're talking about, hurdles and issues as women through life. So get us as a patient, get us as a customer or an advocate early on. And so I do think it is right for continued investment and growth.
Absolutely. And also, as not just a founder, a fempreneur yourself, who's also a survivor, how did you mother yourself through these challenges of launching a mission-based business after going through your own personal postpartum journey? I would love to learn more about your leadership and any of the challenges that our audience would be aware of.
My first child, that was really what started the idea of the birth of Nyssa, just based on my experience. And I was fortunate enough to have a community around me, have friends that were going through similar. They had had children or were pregnant around the same time. So putting our collective efforts and talents together is how we were able to start Nyssa. And that was incredible. Um, it was not easy. It's never, ever been easy. And
Yes.
when I had my second child, right beforehand, right before I went into labor, we had found out that a large company had copied one of our products, which we had patents around. And it was really one of those like very traditional David and Goliath. IP means very little. We'd like to do a podcast on that too when we when we have the
Yeah.
opportunity. And it hit our company in such a big way that I did not practice what I preached in my fourth trimester. I was breastfeeding and emailing. I was sending messages and not resting. And every moment of it, I was reminding myself,
Yeah.
like, this is not what I want someone else to do, you know? So I would say it is a everyday working hard towards honoring the mission of Nyssa and trying to pave a space that supports not only women as they navigate these times of recovery in their life, but also what would you call it, fempreneur? I love that.
Oh, fempreneurship. That's the new
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, I love
Fempreneur.
yeah, making putting the groundwork so that someone doesn't need to do that in the future, that they're able to have the space to take the time for recovery that they deserve. And I'm continuing to work on it.
Is there anything today, whether it's about Nyssa or your personal journey, that we did not cover that you'd want our audience to know about? And if not, I'd love to hear about one actionable piece of advice to any new parent or partner that you could leave us with, either or both questions.
I have a lot that I would share about Nyssa. I
Yep.
would say, well, actionable, I'm going to kind of touch on what I mentioned earlier, is to just be patient with yourself and not use right or wrongs. To parenting, to mothering, honestly, to running a business, it is a journey in which you have to learn and you have to pivot and you have to be nimble. And even when you think that you're doing all the right steps and you're watching the right YouTube videos and asking the right questions, something's going to come at you. Tariffs,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, a global pandemic, like all these things we've dealt with as mothers and as business owners. So you can't be prepared for everything. So being patient and calm, and the goal should be finding safe and secure. And I think that would be really important.
Eden, thank you so much for this heartfelt, honest conversation today. Your insights do remind us that recovery is about more than just stitches and ice packs. It's about empathy, partnership, and community. Glad to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our listeners. You can explore nyssacare.com, NYSSACARE.com for postpartum and period pain solutions designed by women for women. And you can download MissPoppins app for expert coaching, community support, and resources across every stage of parenthood. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs a reminder that they're not alone in their recovery. Until next time, let's keep talking, listening, and lift each other up. Thank you.